There's something raw and grounding about bark edge shelving. It doesn't try to hide the material. It doesn't sand down the truth. It presents the wood exactly as it came, jagged, uneven, imperfect, and lets that roughness become the art. You look at one of these shelves and instantly know you're looking at something that was once alive. You see the outer edge of the tree, still intact. The bark might be chipped, cracked, or peeling in places, but it's there, honest, untouched, not hidden beneath polish or veneer, but proudly visible. This isn't wood made to imitate perfection. This is wood that reminds you where it came from. Bark edge shelving isn't just furniture. It's a conversation between nature and utility. You take the wildness of a tree and ask it to hold your books, your plants, your memories, and somehow it agrees. But it doesn't conform. It doesn't straighten itself out or apologize for its shape. It stays rugged, and in doing so, it brings a kind of honesty into your space. A shelf like this says, not everything needs to be perfect to be beautiful. Not every line needs to be straight to be strong. The process of creating bark edge shelving starts not at a workbench, but in the forest. Not all slabs can become shelves. The wood has to be cut carefully to preserve the outer edge of the tree, the living edge, as it's sometimes called. That edge, where bark meets sapwood, is fragile. It can fall apart if mishandled, or rot if not dried properly. But if it's harvested with care and dried slowly over time, that bark becomes a permanent feature. A dark, rugged contour that runs the length of the shelf like a natural signature. When you first pick up a slab with bark still attached, it doesn't look like furniture. It looks like a piece of tree. Heavy, unwieldy, jagged. The craftsman has to decide what parts to clean and what parts to leave untouched. The face of the shelf might be sanded smooth, polished until it's soft to the touch, while the bark is gently brushed, just enough to remove loose flakes without destroying its character. It's a careful balance. Refine the surface, but preserve the edge. Respect the tree. Every piece of bark edge shelving is different. Some edges are thick and heavy, with deep ridges and bold textures. Others are narrow and subtle, with fine cracks and delicate lines. Some bark peels away in thin curls, revealing layers of color underneath. Some stays dense and dark, almost like stone. And then there's the grain of the wood itself, wide and wavy, tight and straight, rippled with figure. Walnut, cherry, maple, oak. Each one brings its own tone, its own presence. No two shelves ever carry the same voice. Mounting these shelves is its own art. You can float them, hidden brackets sunk into the wall, giving the illusion that the shelf is hovering. You can mount them with bold metal supports, black steel, brushed brass, aged iron, contrasting the wildness of the bark with industrial form. Some builders leave the edges raw and the surfaces perfectly smooth, creating a tension between natural and refined. Others lean into the rustic feeling, letting the tool marks show, letting the wood speak louder than the finish. In a space, a bark edge shelf draws your eye like a horizon. It doesn't shout. It just rests. Calm, grounded. It becomes a line of interest in a room full of repetition. Where most furniture is clean, symmetrical, measured, this shelf brings asymmetry. It refuses to be straight, and that refusal is what makes it beautiful. You don't have to put much on a shelf like this. A plant, a ceramic cup, a few well-loved books. The shelf itself does the heavy lifting. It sets the tone, and the tone is always natural, earthy, honest. Even in modern interiors, white walls, steel fixtures, glass and concrete, a bark edge shelf brings warmth. A reminder that beneath all our straight lines and digital lives, we still crave texture, still respond to grain, still feel something when we run our fingers along an edge that wasn't made by machine, but by rain and sun and wind and time. Some people choose bark edge shelving as a statement, a centerpiece in a hallway, a bold touch in a minimalist living room. Others use it more quietly, a small shelf in a bathroom, a floating corner in the kitchen, a nightstand in a guest room. But no matter where it goes, the feeling it brings is the same. Calm, connection, a slowing down of the pace. You don't rush past a shelf like this. You pause. You look. You notice. Craftsmen who build bark edge shelving often talk about listening to the wood. letting it tell them what shape to follow, what size to cut, where to trim, and where to leave it raw. That might sound poetic, but it's also practical. If you fight the wood, if you try to force it into straight lines or perfect corners, it pushes back, it splinters, it cracks. But if you follow its contours, work with its flow, the result feels effortless. Like the shelf was always meant to be there. Like the tree just offered this piece up. And yet, there's engineering involved. These shelves aren't fragile. They're solid, built to hold weight. The craftsmanship is hidden beneath the beauty. Strong brackets, deep anchors, precisely milled joinery. What looks wild on the outside is often quietly engineered within. That's the genius of good design. To build something that works flawlessly, but never looks like it's trying too hard. Over time, a bark edge shelf changes. The bark might darken. The grain might deepen. Tiny checks may appear. Hairline cracks that come from air, from age, from settling into place. These aren't flaws. They're growth. They're part of the life of the piece. And because the shelf came from a tree, it continues to live in a way. It reacts to its environment, expands with heat, contracts with cold. It breathes. And if you take care of it, oil it gently once a year, dust it without harsh chemicals, it can last for generations. What people often don't realize is how versatile bark edge shelving can be. It works in rustic homes, yes, log cabins, mountain lodges, farmhouse kitchens. But it also thrives in contrast. A bark edge shelf in a modern loft adds a note of warmth. In a minimalist office, it becomes the one touch of imperfection. In a clean, white bathroom, it becomes a visual anchor, something you can feel even before you touch it. That tension, that mix of old and new, raw and refined, is where the magic happens. Some builders experiment with hybrid forms, combining bark edge wood with glass, resin, or concrete. A shelf with bark on one edge and poured resin on the other, capturing bubbles and swirls of pigment that look like flowing water. A bark edge shelf, suspended by ropes or chains, swinging gently, almost like a piece of kinetic sculpture. Others keep it classic, one solid slab, two clean lines, mounted and left alone. And yet, everyone feels new. Every piece holds its own fingerprint. There's no wrong way to use bark edge shelving. That's the beauty. It can hold a vintage camera collection, a row of spice jars, a single bonsai tree, a framed photo, a smooth river stone. Whatever you place on it becomes part of the story. The shelf doesn't dominate. It doesn't demand. It simply offers a place, a presence, a feeling. And maybe that's why people return to these shelves again and again, because they remind us that design doesn't always have to be polished to be powerful. That sometimes the edge of a thing, the part we usually cut off or sand down, is where the beauty lives. Bark edge shelving doesn't ask for attention, but it gets it anyway. The bark is what does it. It runs along the edge like a frame, rough and uneven, full of texture and grit. It's the one part of the tree that most furniture tries to hide. But here, it's left intact, on purpose, as a statement. You look at a bark edge shelf and you immediately know this came from something real. A tree, not plywood, not particle board, not some factory cut piece with fake grain printed on top. This is solid, heavy, organic, with the scars and edges to prove it. Every shelf is different. One might have smooth, clean bark, soft to the touch, almost polished. Another might be flaky, peeling in layers, darkened by age. Some bark hugs the shelf tight. Others jut out in little ledges or pockets, wild and unpredictable. There's no standard shape. That's the point. The top and bottom surfaces are plain flat, smooth and usable, but that live edge is left alone. It's not carved to look good. It's left true. You can feel the grain run right up to the bark. You can trace the rings. You can see where the cambium curled and thickened. It's the last part of the tree to grow. And here, it's the first thing you notice. Some shelves keep both edges live, bark on the front and back. Others just leave the front raw and plane the back flat for mounting. Some people mount bark edge slabs flush to the wall with hidden brackets, floating, no visible support. Others use metal frames, rustic iron arms, wooden corbels, whatever fits the mood. But no matter how you hang them, they don't hide. And the grain above the bark? That's where the real depth shows. The contrast between polished surface and raw edge makes the whole shelf feel more alive. You'll see heartwood darken in the center, lighter sapwood near the edges, knots, rings, spalting, sometimes even cracks running through. Each one tells a story. Nothing is filler. Nothing is fake. These shelves work everywhere. In a clean, white modern room, they bring warmth. In a rustic space, they deepen the texture. In a workshop, they look like they've always been there. They're not accent pieces. They're foundation, and they hold real weight, not just visually. These are thick, solid slabs, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, sometimes more. They're not just decoration. You can stack books on them, plants, dishes, tools, whatever you live with, they hold it, quietly, confidently. Making them isn't complicated, but it's deliberate. You start with a slab, maybe air-dried, maybe kiln-dried. You cut it to length, plane the top flat, sand it down not too much. You want to keep the character. Then you treat the bark, brush it, clean it, sometimes seal it, sometimes not. If the bark is fragile, you use stabilizer or thin epoxy to lock it in place. If it's strong, you leave it raw. Then you oil or finish the whole thing. Clear coat, tongue oil, wax, matte poly. Nothing glossy, just enough to bring out the grain and protect the wood. You mount it and step back. Done. No frills, no tricks. Just wood doing what it's supposed to do. Look good, feel solid, and hold whatever you put on it. That's what makes bark edge shelving different. It doesn't try to be perfect. It doesn't erase where it came from. It celebrates it. The bark isn't a flaw. It's a feature. A line that says, "This was once alive. And now it's still here." Holding up your things, showing up with texture, and keeping a little piece of the forest alive inside your space.